She's the great Pat Thurston, everyone. Hi, Pat.
You know why I came back is because you really need me right now, Mark.
I do. I need you. I need you now. I needed you last year. I need you all the time.
Yeah,
but you're right. It's a time. It's an inflection point in America, isn't it, Pat?
It is indeed. And I heard you, and I believe that you are supporting Joe Biden staying in the race, and I do not. I think that this is too serious. There's still 4 months to go, and 4 months could be an eternity in a presidential election. There are better candidates who are better spoken, who will be able to take on anything that the Republicans throw at them and be able to defend the Biden record. And the top of that list is Gavin Newsom. That's in my opinion. I don't think that Kamala Harris can win. Her polling numbers right now are over Joe Biden's. Joe Biden's numbers are continuing to go down. Somewhere he's getting figures that nobody can figure out where he's getting them from. He is not winning in multiple polls. It's just not true. And now what with the assassination attempt and the visuals of Donald Trump roaring like a lion, fight, fight, fight. Somebody strong needs to come up here. And I think that Gavin should be at the top, and Gretchen Whitmer should be the vice presidential nominee. And I think they could absolutely kick some ass.
It's interesting that Gavin Newsom is someone who I think is amazing on so many different platforms. He goes to Fox News Channel and he steamrolls them. And it's almost as though for him, it's like watching, Bruce Lee in one of those movies take on, 8 different guys in a fight. So Gavin Newsom's skills are not in question. His appeal nationally may not be what you think it is. Why are you?
Think it's non-existent right now because I don't think people know really who he is. They hear he's the governor of California, but Gavin, he's got a lot of energy. He would campaign across the country. He would go everywhere, small towns, big towns, whatever it would take. He would go on Fox News. He would do debates with Donald Trump. He would do a debate with anybody and he would win. And he would convince people that he's the right guy because he's got the facts behind him. And he's got the facts of the Biden administration. Because what he can do is what Joe Biden cannot do. He can sell the successes of this administration. Joe Biden is incapable of doing that right now. Joe Biden, love him. He's had a good presidency. He's done some amazing things in his presidency. But he's not going to get younger. He's going to have 4 more years of the kind of stresses that the presidency provides. And you think that he can survive that and be the kind of president or the kind of senator that he's been in the past? Most of the country doesn't. Most of the country thinks he really needs to back out. Now, what I don't think, and I'd love to hear what you think of this, I don't think he should resign. I think he should pull an LBJ. I think he should let everybody know and then make a fabulous speech at the convention that he will not accept the nomination of his party. And if he does that, there's a couple of different ways it can go. Some people have suggested a mini primary, and that would have to happen before the convention. But the mini primary, they would select probably through the DNC 8 potential candidates who would debate it out. And the ones who were receiving the tops, then those are the people who would be at the convention. And you might have 2, you might have 3 candidates end up there. And you release the delegates and you let the delegates vote on who they think would be the best candidate. I think Gavin Newsom would win in a situation like that. Or you can have a free-for-all. You can have an open convention. It's happened in the past. It's chaotic. It would be utter chaos, but that's the heart of democracy. Democracy is not neat and clean.
Yeah. The problem with that's democracy, and democracy is not neat and clean, and it would be chaotic, but it would bring a lot of attention to different issues, is that these days, the politics of America is played out in clean, black and white media bites. And the idea somehow that the Democrats are so disorganized that they can't even decide who's top of ticket, and no one's ahead right now. There are a couple who and then they pass over Kamala Harris. That is a leap that you can explain to me how you're going to do it. I think it plays badly. You want them to run the country? They can't even decide. They've just decided that the old man can't do it anymore.
Right.
Now they want to decide as to who's going to take the place of the old man on the ticket, and they can't make that decision either.
No,
It's
no.
typical Democrats. They
No,
belong.
don't
Yeah.
go for the guy who has become incompetent. You don't go for that guy. You don't go for the guy who can't even express what he's done during his administration and think that that's going to convince them that this is the strongest individual. We're only going after a sliver of the electorate. Democrats are going to vote for, or most Democrats, whoever the nominee is. But you've got independents who despise Donald Trump. You've got Republicans fleeing the Republican Party because they despise Donald Trump, but they're just going to sit it out if they don't have someone they can actually support. So during the period between the election, the convention and the election, there's enough time to win people over and to convince them that the Democratic Party understands that this was our guy. He did all these things. We were behind him, but age catches up with everybody. And now it caught up with Joe Biden. And so we can see what's going on. We're going to go with the best candidate to do what's necessary for America. And that best candidate, to my mind, is Gavin Newsom. I actually like Jason Crow, but I think he's less well known than Gavin Newsom. I don't know if he has any interest in it. I know Gavin does. So, I mean, I think whatever we need to do it, we need to do it soon for all the reasons you said. And I also agree with David K. Johnston, who was just on. Democrats need to learn how to sell. Gavin Newsom knows how to sell. They need to be able to do those little sound bites. They need to be able to they need to be attack dogs, but they also need to be the ones who say things in short clips that are going to resonate with the American people. You know, that's one problem Gavin kind of has. He loves to hear himself talk and he uses big words. So,
but he does, as you say, know how to sell, and he knows how to get a message out. But
look
now,
at how handsome and young he is. He's got a beautiful family. His wife is amazing. And then
now tell me how you handle the Kamala Harris issue.
Kamala Harris isn't popular. She's not likable. So you do that simply with polling. I think that she has things going for her. She's been brilliant as she's been out on the stump and she's been talking about women's reproductive rights. She's fabulous on that. But when you poll average American people, they don't like her. And unfortunately, likability is key to an election. Yeah. So, you know, if she ends up being the person, if you do the mini primary and she ends up being the person who's at the top of the polls, God bless her. She's got, you know, she would get support from a lot of African Americans, a lot of African American women, and a lot of women.
Well, she'd get all that money. You know, honestly, Pat, there's a war chest there that none of these other people you've mentioned would have access to unless you'd have to get lawyers involved and maybe it could be redirected. It would be very complicated.
Yeah, that is key. But then again, Gavin Newsom is a money-making machine. If anybody can get the donations, it's going to be Gavin Newsom. But I agree with that. Kamala has a few advantages here, and one of them is that she's already part of the ticket. She can take on the money that's been donated to the Biden campaign. But the DNC is getting an awful lot of money too. Democrats are getting donations that go through the DNC. So whatever candidate the Democrats pick, they'll have access to that chest as well. There's also the free publicity that's going to come along with it, Mark. I mean, let's face it. You got Gavin Newsom suddenly coming on board. The news channels, everybody's going to be covering him the way they covered Trump in the first election when they had no business doing it. But Gavin is a force to be reckoned with. I don't know that Kamala is. I was even thinking maybe she should continue as vice president, but I don't think you can because they're both from California. She could, though, you know, work with Gavin. She could become AG. She was his AG in California. You know, I don't know. There are a lot of things where she could be part of that administration. But, you know, her popularity, her likability, I think is a key thing that's going to work against her if she's at the top of the ticket.
The money is, you know, going away from Joe Biden a bit, as you know. The cutting off of the Disney heiress cut off her money along with a couple of other big donors. Clooney came out. I guess my concern about this open convention and sort of what you're talking about is what I expressed in terms of the chaotic nature of it. I think it isn't. People like to coalesce behind a candidate or around a candidate, and I think the longer you have it a free for all, the worse it is for the Democrats in this case.
That's why Biden needs to make a move, and he needs to make a move quickly, very quickly. And the move doesn't have to be, I'm resigning. I think that would be wrong. The move has to be, I hear you. I understand. I am getting older. I've talked it over with everybody, and however he wants to phrase it, but I am not going to accept the nomination. And that'll give people an opportunity to get really pissed off at him. And that'll give people the opportunity to start pushing forward the candidates who really are going to be able to do this. I see that we have a comment that says swing states aren't going to go for Newsom. They very well might. And you get Gretchen Whitmer as the second person on the ticket. And those swing states probably don't know a heck of a lot about Gavin Newsom. Gavin can talk to them about why all the things that are said about the state of California are actually bullshit. And he's got the facts behind him. He can do that. He can show people, not just give them broad statements. He can show people what actually has happened in California under the direction of Gavin Newsom, because he's done some pretty remarkable things here too.
Gavin Newsom's sanctuary state migrant sanctuary ideas are unpopular in some states.
That is true, but a lot of people, again, don't understand what that means. Oh, okay. What about Gavin and PG&E? I can't fix that. That pisses me off more than anything.
Well, Gavin and PG&E, Gavin and big money when it comes to the medical field. I mean, there's the healthcare lobby that's
money.
Yeah.
But and again, I don't know that Gavin has too much in his background. His ex-wife is Donald Trump's son's girlfriend right now. So if you want to bring her up, just throw it right back on the Trump family. And, because he had an affair at a time he was divorced and it was with his best friend's friend, I don't think anybody cares about that if they don't care about Donald Trump and the porn star and the Playboy model.
Yeah,
people still have the same kind of attitude that they did. And if they throw that up at, Gavin Newsom, they weren't going to vote for Gavin Newsom anyway, because they don't care about the moral failings of Donald Trump.
Karen says,
look at Gavin now. Look at who he is. Look at his family. They're wonderful.
Karen says, I don't think Gavin can do it. He would lose some of the independent voters. Gretchen would be best, but Kamala would be smartest. Overlooking her would not be a good look, and she has the money. That does summarize sort of what we were saying.
There's nothing. Those are absolutely good points. And look, Gavin may not be the guy, but Joe Biden's not the guy. And so I think Gavin is the best way to go. And I think that Gavin is going to be able to win people over because he's got that gift of gab, because he's got the look. He's presidential, because he's got the accomplishments, because he's been an executive of the fifth largest economy in the world for a long time now. I don't know how many years he's been in office, but for a long time now. So he's got the background. He's got the executive experience. He knows what he's doing. He's the smartest one in the entire field. He's smarter than Kamala Harris. He's smarter than any of them. And, listen to him talk. Do I think he's perfect? No. There are things I despise about Gavin Newsom, but I think he would be a good president. I think he would be a good replacement, and I think he would save us from Donald Trump.
Sandy says, think Gavin would be fantastic, but I don't think it's possible that he can step in at this point. The money has been raised for the Biden-Harris campaign. That does go back to that. But Pat's point was, well, the money will be flowing to Gavin if he were to the new guy,
because the money is stopping. The flow is really slowing. It's diminishing a lot when it comes to Biden-Harris. And there may be ways, you're right, Mark, that it's going to take litigation. But there may be ways that money can go to the presidential candidate, whoever the Democrats choose. I don't know how that would work. I don't know what the campaign finance laws are in that regard. But, Biden doesn't get to pocket that money. That money has to go somewhere.
That's why Harris would be at least have access to that money. It's interesting, Pat.
If it's not her, he still can't pocket the money. The money has to go somewhere.
Right. No, it's not a PAC per se that way. But I did want to just double back to sort of what underpins this entire thing that you're talking about, and that is polling. You're seeing a polling that suggests that Biden is behind. You reference the fact that Biden is, you didn't use this word, delusional, but certainly misled with some of the polling to which he's
Right, from
referring.
his staff, apparently.
Yeah, where he feels like, oh, look, what are you talking about? It's a toss up in all of these states when he's actually behind. My question then is about many of these people you've mentioned, because there really isn't polling on them. And so you're ready to kind of take what was that? Let's make a deal. You can take the mystery curtain that, and you're sort of ready to go for the mystery.
Mark, it sometimes pays off. There's a new car behind
That's true. You're absolutely right. Sometimes it pays off. But there, aren't you a little bit trepidatious about the fact that there isn't really polling on some of these people that you talk about?
Yes. However, not as much as I am about Biden, because there are lots of polls on Biden, and those polls are Biden's going to lose. As far as Kamala is concerned, her polls are higher than Biden's. They're neck and neck with Trump right now. I don't think that that's going to continue. And I think that if Gavin enters the race, since most people don't know him, he was, the last polling I saw, Gavin Newsom, who's really unknown in the hinterland. He's only really known in California. He was like 2 points behind Kamala. And that's not so bad when you're an unknown. So there has been some polling. There was polling on Gretchen. There was polling on Gavin. There was polling on Kamala. And there was one other person whose name escapes me. But Gavin was like right in the middle of the pack there behind Kamala. And I just think that he's got what it takes. Now, I could be wrong, and maybe somebody else would rise through. I mean, Adam Schiff today said that he thinks Biden needs to go. More people are dropping out. More people are not supporting Joe Biden as the Democratic candidate. And, and these are people within the Democratic Party. And you know why? Because their voters are telling them. And then you have all kinds of sitting congressmen and senators who are up for election this time around. When the Senate is concerned, all the Congress people are up for election. And they're telling us that they think Biden is going to cost them their elections, because people are not going to come out to vote. Not that they're going to vote for the other guy necessarily, but that they're not going to vote. You said it yourself. We need people to come out and vote. When we have massive turnout in elections, Democrats win. So exactly what you were saying before, they need to work on the get out the vote. They need to get people. They need to be out there constantly and making sure that people are going to vote and have the ability to get to the polls or to get their ballots or whatever they need to do. So all of that is absolutely true. But we also have to give them a candidate that they're willing to vote for. And too many people, wasn't it 70 some odd percent now of the American electorate? And that's Republicans, Democrats, independents, even people voting for Robert Kennedy, are saying that Joe Biden's too old to be president.
Yeah, that's the statistic. That, by the way, I'm not some Biden backer. You may remember that I wasn't even a big Biden backer when they were talking about him to take on the mantle of the party back in 2020. I mean, I was, he's very institutional, but he surprised me with what he's gotten done.
Right.
But that said, so I'm not a rah-rah. I would happily spark to one of these ideas if I felt they had any real sound logic. I'm just going to give you a little something on the, and like everything is, and I love this about you. I mean, everything's in play, and I love this about you, that you throw these things out there, and I think they're well reasoned and well argued, and that's why I kind of sit with it for a second, and I throw this out here in terms of the polling, because we asked about polling. The survey, first on what you just said, which was the polling on him not being, he's too old. Everybody agrees he's too old. I would say he's too old, but I'll take him in a hospital gurney before I vote for Donald Trump.
So will I.
These are the choices that we have. So
but
will you? But
they are not. He is not the official candidate.
But when you say, is this person too old to be president? I would say Trump is and Biden is. But when you ask me, will you vote for Joe Biden? The answer against Trump, I go, yeah, I will. I'll
Me
vote as many times as I can.
Me
I mean,
too,
so
there's no question.
so,
But
so my
we're
point is
not the ones in
it's a
question.
different polling question, Pat, than is he too old? That's why I'm saying that is he too old to serve? That question doesn't actually serve us in terms of predicting the future of voting.
It serves us in terms of predicting the turnout, because what we cannot abide is that people say, I don't like either one of them. Biden's too old. Trump's too nuts. I'm not going to vote, because Trump and his followers, they're going to be motivated. So what's going to motivate Democrats? It's not going to be Joe Biden. And that's a really huge issue in this particular election. Independents are up for grabs right now, Mark. They really are. And there are a lot of Republicans who are as well. But they may well sit out this election if we can't motivate them to think that we have a candidate who's going to do what's necessary. And one of the things I like about Gavin is that he's bold. And that may be one of the things that some people think will work against him. I don't think so. He's bold. He makes decisions. When he was the mayor of San Francisco, he was the first person who said this idea of not issuing same-sex marriage licenses to same-sex or marriage licenses to same-sex couples is unconstitutional. I'm issuing marriage licenses, and he started marrying people in City Hall immediately. Then the California Constitution reaffirmed that he was right, that it was unconstitutional, and ultimately so did the Supreme Court. That was Gavin. Gavin got that ball rolling. That was Gavin Newsom, because he was bold and he saw something that he knew wasn't right. I believe, and he hasn't said anything like this, but I believe that he will take some of the bold steps that are going to be necessary to protect our democracy in the future. And one of those, and I know people are going to get really mad, one of those is he needs to expand the Supreme Court. And I think Gavin would have the courage to do it.
Well, you know how I feel about that. I couldn't agree more. And I think one of the problems with Joe Biden is he's such an institutionalist. He didn't want to touch anything. He didn't want to touch a special prosecutor who was prosecuting his son. He appointed Merrick Garland, who is total weak sauce. I hated it from the start. And Merrick Garland is everything I said he would be and worse. He is a disgusting smear on the Justice Department, and he's so afraid of his own shadow when it comes to looking as though something's going to be perceived as political that he allowed the slow walking of the special counsel appointment. Now, quickly to the flash poll they did. They found that the likely number of voters who think Biden should remain as Democratic nominee for president has declined. This is just 2 weeks ago. Okay, so this is a two-week-old, but it pertains to what we're talking about with the options. The poll found that Vice President Kamala Harris was the most popular choice to replace Biden if he dropped out of the race. However, the same survey found that neither Harris nor any of the other Democrats being floated as contenders to replace Biden, including Whitmer and California Governor Gavin Newsom, would fare better than Biden in a two-way matchup against Trump.
Are you surprised? I mean, again, people know Gretchen Whitmer from her state where she was governor. They know her very well. People in California know Gavin Newsom because he was governor of our state. So these other potential candidates who could be viable, magnificent candidates, they don't know them yet. We got 4 months. Biden needs to make his statement, allow this thing to open up, and allow them to start campaigning. And then let's look at the polls once people get a look at who they actually are, what they represent, who they are, what their platforms would be.
I think it's a fair point to say that they're not well known and that those who don't have name recognition, who aren't well known, are not going to do as well in a poll. So I grant you that point. It's a complicated scene, and it's remarkable that we're here. And I think one of the reasons we're here is because there is an institutional nature to American politics. And Trump has really shaken up those institutions because he's really created a cult of personality. I mean, you're either with him or you're not in the party type thing. Biden is such an institutionalist, and the Democrats, again, are a much more fractured crew. It's hard to get them to fall in line. Right. And it seems, though, Pat, that they just grant the incumbent the option of running again. That's the institutional nature of the Democratic
He
side.
inherits that right to be president. Yeah, I think you're right about everything that you've said. I mean, I think you're absolutely right. I do think that it's complicated. The reason I think we're here is because just like Dianne Feinstein, as she was declining, her staff protected her and deceived the public. And that's what's happened with Joe Biden. He wasn't doing pressers. He wasn't taking questions from people. His public presence was seriously diminished, far less than former presidents had done, including Barack Obama and including Donald Trump. And so when he appeared in that debate, our expectations were that we were going to see the guy we saw 4 years ago. And when we saw the guy that we saw, I mean, so many of us, our hearts just dropped and we thought, oh, fuck. Can I say that? It's the internet, right? I can say we're going to lose. That's what we thought. And we haven't changed our minds because he hasn't done anything to change our minds. It seems like he can talk, like when he was talking about foreign policy, that's something he knows about, has known about for a long time. That was great, but it didn't last. He can only talk a certain amount of time. He loses his place in a sentence and then he goes, well, anyway, and then he goes back to something else. And so often they're complete non sequiturs. He's too old. He's probably, his mind, it's slowing down. There's no question. He's a very bright man. He's got tremendous experience and he's done wonderful things, but he can't keep doing it. And the nation will suffer. The nation will suffer if Biden continues. The nation will suffer if Donald Trump wins. So something has to happen.
Well, I would say to you that may be a talking point, and there may be, I would contend the nation won't suffer if he wins. Even if he diminishes mentally, he is surrounded by a highly competent staff. This is not like the Trump show that was populating government for the years that Trump was there. These are highly skilled, effective, smart people.
This is not just a figurehead position, Mark. The presidency holds tremendous power, and he does one-on-one negotiations with foreign leaders.
Pat, by the way, I don't necessarily disagree with you, but let me just disagree with you for the sake of argument for a moment, because I'm underpinned by strong facts. It is a figurehead post. Look at how Donald Trump handled it. He was a figurehead. He didn't go to work till 11 a.m. He's in his bathrobe watching Fox and Friends, okay? Then he goes for an hour having read nothing, no briefing materials, nothing. It's a photo op, how are you? Yeah, you're doing a great job, I'm going to catch a helicopter to take me to golf. And that's what he did every goddamn day. So don't tell me how important the president is and how he's making decisions and all the rest. He lets staff do it.
He also got Vladimir Zelensky on the phone and tried to blackmail him into not allowing a release of funds that they needed to have in order to protect themselves from Russia.
Oh, sure. He'll jump on the phone. He'll get his needs taken care of. He'll fire people.
He's totally in the pocket of Vladimir Putin and of Xi Jinping. He loves and is invited to Mar-a-Lago twice now. What's his face? Or Viktor Orban.
Viktor Orban, yeah.
And he's also in love with Erdogan. I mean, dictators are what he wants. That's not a figurehead position when he believes, and I believe, that he can take us into a dictatorship and he has fascist tendencies. That is a man who is looking for the power to be installed in him and him alone.
Of course, but he rules by charisma and cult of personality. He does not have any kind of underpinning philosophically when it comes to politics or the rest. He runs the show like I'm the boss, and he runs it like a mobster. You don't need any kind of sophisticated political understanding to run the government like a mobster.
That's true for Donald Trump, because he did run it like a mobster. But, who's the head of the mob family? You think he's just a figurehead? He is not. He's the one making the decisions as to who gets axed and who doesn't get axed.
He only cares about people who are in the way of him making money and moneyed interests that are associated with him.
With that. Or Vladimir Putin, who for some reason, something's going on along with him. So I don't think that. I think that Joe Biden would be a danger going forward because of the interactions that he would have with other people and the policies that he thinks that he would support. I mean, look at Dianne Feinstein again. We don't need that.
Perfect example. Perfect example. Did you think Dianne Feinstein was a danger going forward?
I thought that she
I thought she was checked out, and the administrative staff handled things. She wasn't a danger.
But she wasn't a United States senator anymore.
I agree, but you just said, I think Joe Biden would be a danger going forward. You don't believe that. He's not a danger going forward.
No. I think he would be, because he would not be competent to make the decisions that the president has to make.
Right. I think were he to that point, he would step back. I mean, I don't see, I see utter competence. I might
resign because he becomes incompetent, and that's not going to look bad to Democrats. I mean, I just think
once he wins and he begins another 4-year term.
We know the problem now. Why allow it to continue it gets to a point where he has to resign his office?
We're down to our last minute, but give me a coherent path to succession, and I'll take it. But what you've suggested to me is a chaotic path. I mean, an open convention, and
what? Like we're going to allow him to anoint the next person who's going to be the president of the United States?
I don't see how you. I don't like her particularly, but I don't see how you skip over Kamala Harris. Well, you do. She's a woman of color. She has legitimate rights in the sense that she's on the ticket. So if he stepped back, she would then have access to all that media money and the administrative power that's associated with it. But Mark, I don't know how you skip over her.
You're disregarding the likability factor. If people don't like her, she's not going to get elected. And people do not like her. And that's something that we have to come to grips with. She's not likable. Gavin Newsom is likable, and he's really smart. The money factor, you're right about, but there are paths that can be taken. The open convention, that's the most chaotic path. It's also the most democratic. But there's also the idea of the mini primary, which some lawmakers have proposed. And I don't have all of the nuts and bolts of it in front of me, but when I read about it, I thought that's doable, where there's a select number of people who are going to go around the country and present themselves, and there's going to be votes that are going to be taken, and people are going to decide who would 2 or 3 people be who should face the delegates. And we're going to have to go through a few votes on the convention.
Well, it sounds like a movie I'd enjoy watching, but I don't know if I want to actually see it in real life. But it's intriguing.
Down to 5% battery.
I know.
What's wrong with chaos at the convention? What's wrong with that?
I think you pay a price for chaos. If you watch the
price, if ultimately you had a candidate, and that's what would happen. You would take a number of votes. The people who are running.
Well, by the way, you can say you'd end up with a candidate, but you take a vote. You may not get to the threshold. So I'm sorry, Pat. You may not walk out of that convention with someone.
You wouldn't stop until you got to the threshold.
Okay, but I'm just saying there's a certain quality. When it took 15 votes to get Kevin McCarthy the speakership, what do we all say? Yeah, they don't know what they're doing. The Republican. Yeah. Okay.
We're better than they are. We have.
You're down to 5% battery.
I know. I heard it. Thank you. All right. I'm going to have to break. I love this conversation. And I want to do it more.
Pat.
I miss you too, Kimmy. Love you, kids.
Did we ask Pat the question? We don't have time. I'll ask you the question about the identifying with the Kim's thing earlier. But you got a lot. Yeah. Right.
Kim is correct.
Kim's correct. Okay. Love you, Pat Thurston. The Kung Fu Femmes, thank you for a $10 super chat.
Big shout out.
Yeah, look at you, Pat, bringing some money into the show. That's what we need.
Who are they? I love them.
Yeah. The Kung Fu Femmes, that's who they are.
Ooh.
Please ask Pat to repeat her classic meme. What is that? Your classic meme. What was that?
Maybe the porn star drop that we used to play all the time. What are the porn stars doing?
Albert.
Where is the porn star drop? Do you have it, Albert? I think I may have it. No, I have.
Ralph Nader just sent me a book. Did he send you one too?
No, I have that.
My backup, but still slutty account.
No, that's not Pat. I'll find it. Give me 1 second. Yeah, Pat was a big, and she, you went deep in our Mark's Madness. You went deep. Your what are the porn stars doing, Mark? Gosh, why don't I have it, Albert?
I don't have it either. I'm sorry. Yeah.
What are the porn stars doing,
There we
Mark?
go.
There it is. Yeah, that is great.
What are the porn stars doing, Mark?
That was during COVID when they were talking about various. I think
I don't even remember.
they talked about what they were doing on porn sets or something, and
What are the porn stars doing, Mark?
it was great. We just got a lot of mileage out of it. I miss those days, Pat.
Me too.
So now, once in a while, you can be heard on KCBS radio, but you're not doing your thing. You're
Not like this. No.
No. But but it's good to have work. It's good to be on radio and be remembered, and people love you and remember you here. So I'm chief among them. Please come visit again.
Oh, I will.
And I love this stuff. And, there isn't a better time. I mean, this may be truly one of the most consequential elections, maybe the most consequential election of our lives.
I'm
So,
afraid it may be.
yeah.
Well, love to Courtney.
Yes, and love to your family as well.
Thank
you, Pat Thurston. Hi, it's Mark, and I thought that was great. Hit the notification bell. You'll know whenever there's a new video being dropped, and please subscribe to our channel to help us save the universe.